Alrighty, everyone. Bear with me. We're going to do something a little bit different here. Kevin, roll the tape.
To another splendiferous episode of
Bottom Nerd,
Man, the only show that soothes the ego better than Mantis. I'm Kevin Smith.
Brian Johnson.
Walt Flanagan.
Mike Zapsik.
Ming Chen.
Ian Nicholson.
Walt, what happened this week?
So, for the 65th episode, I wanted to do something pretty brief but pretty cool that I'm actually getting really passionate and awesome about is the show on AMC called Comic Book Men. If you are not watching the show or if you haven't seen the show, it's actually really great, especially if you're somebody who used to have a comic book store, who used to have that place where you know, back in the 90s as a kid where you got baseball cards and comic books and all that stuff. They're very hard to find nowadays. If anything, I would dare you to try and name a single comic book store that still exists. I can name two. There's Atomic Comics up here in Tacoma, Washington, and you have Comics and Stuff down in San Diego, California, which if you haven't seen either, they're pretty awesome places to go to. Comic Book Men, the TV show, is based in New Jersey. It's Kevin Smith. If you don't know who Kevin Smith is, where have you been? Bottom line is, it's technically his comic book store, but it's run by these four nerdy dudes. The whole basis of the show is people come in, they bring in stuff to sell, they obviously purchase stuff, celebrities come because they want to find things.
Anybody work here? Hello there. Kevin asked me to come in and say hello, and maybe I might even find my own comic book in here.
It's very reminiscent of my childhood, of hopefully maybe even your childhood. Some of these older toys they bring in.
I got the holy grail of toys. You want to just take a quick look?
All right, if it's the holy grail. Oh,
There you go.
oh my God. You're wearing Whistling Dixie. You got the box too?
That's the Holy Grail? What is it?
It's Marvel World, man.
Some of the comic books, you know, like a #1 Superman. I've actually been very fortunate to actually see a #1 Spider-Man in person. The awe, the glory, it's like the Bible for nerds. If I could go back in time, I would literally tell myself, hold on to this stuff. You're probably thinking the same thing. What is the #1 thing? Tell me in the comments that you wish you would have held on to as a kid. I can tell you right out of the gate, Ghostbusters toys. I am a huge fan of Ghostbusters. Super looking forward to Ghostbusters Afterlife if we get to see it with this whole Corona thing. I had all the toys. I had the car. I had the Firehouse.
Ghostbusters! It's the real Ghostbusters Firehouse playset.
Figment, our firehouse is haunted. No way. Oh no, I've been gooped. Ghost to the stadium.
The real Ghostbusters, each sold separately, assembly required.
I had the Proton Pack. If you still have those items today, I am not shitting you. I saw an original Kenner 1986 Ecto-1 still in its package. Decent shape. I mean, this thing was probably 9 out of 10 condition-wise. It is so far in auction going for around $6,000. So... But again, I mean, who would have thought back in that day collecting toys? You look at the Star Wars back in the 1970s, like those toys, if they are in original packaging, first release, I mean, you are looking at several thousand, if not several $100,000 just in value alone. Comic Book Man, up at the top, you've got Kevin Smith, who I think owns this comic book store, who leaves Walt in charge, and Walt has Mike and Ming, and then you have Brian. I think Brian actually originally owned the store. Brian is kind of that jerk who just makes fun of everything, and it's hilarious. Reminds me of me a lot, where I'm kind of just a snarky asshole.
Kevin and I used to work at estate sales, and we would go into homes and clean stuff up if the relatives came in. They would get what they wanted and leave. The amount of stuff left behind. Like this lady who had amassed a huge collection of these little, like, tiny but ornate teacups were like throwing them into the dumpster, everything right in the garbage.
That's heartbreaking. That's like this one. You had to mail away to get it, right? To Kellogg's Melody. Can you imagine the 6-year-old who begged his mom for the quarter to cut this out, send it, and then get it back? And it's made it to me.
I can imagine him dying and me throwing stuff in a dumpster.
It's hilarious. Walt, you know, he was I feel most compared to Walt just because he was the original nerd. He was the one that collected all the comic books and the action figures and the toys, and that was me. Even to this day, that is me. You see the passion and you see the love that he has for comics, and I think that is, you know, me in a nutshell. Much respect to Walt. You've got Ming, who is the one they make fun of all the time, and I think, again, going back to what I was saying in the beginning, where this show is about camaraderie and just having fun being a nerd. You know, for those of you that were nerds back in the day, it wasn't okay. We were beat up, we were bullied, we were everything in between. And the show reminds you of, I remember that niche, those group of friends I used to have, where we would always talk about the X-Men and we would always talk about the latest Marvel comic that came out. It's just funny because you always had your Ming. Every nerd group had a Ming where you could just poke fun at him. Doesn't matter what it was, you could just...
Is your nose ever out of that iPad?
I'm looking up prices for comics.
You're looking up comics?
Yeah, I know a lot of people come in here and like, yeah, I got a guide. This is what my comic should be worth.
You want to be a human walking guide. I just want to throw out a book and a title, and you want to be able to spit out a number.
People are so misguided these days by these books.
You're here to tell them, no, this is the Ming Chen price.
Right.
That's right. This is what the real world is.
So instead of taking 5 seconds to look it up, you're going to waste all your time studying and trying to memorize them?
And then you have Mike. Mike is kind of your serious go-getter. He's the one that knows the value of everything. He's kind of the logistics, the analytical, and they always have these debates. I love their debates. They'll just ask random questions, you know, like, if you could make up your perfect superhero team using Marvel, DC, Star Wars, everybody, who would it be and why? And tell me what yours would be. Throw it down in the comments. I'd love to know who is you. If you could pick 4 characters out of every universe, what is your perfect superhero team? So I'm going to wrap this episode up. Again, check out Comic Book Man on AMC. I think the show is done now. There's 7 seasons. You can stream it for free right now on Amazon Prime. You'll love it. It's kind of just a cool show to keep in the background, even if you're not really paying attention. You'll get a lot of nostalgia. You'll get a lot of memories. It's kind of quirky and fun too to see when these celebrities come through the door because they're actually looking for a piece of memorabilia. They've got Star Wars coming through the door, Star Trek people. The Karate Kid came through the door.
In that scene in Karate Kid where you caught the flies.
You ever catch one?
Not yet.
How was it done?
That's a good question, because that was, you know, it was before CGI, right? So they must have set that scene up 6 or 7 times, and we tried it different ways. We put one where we put it in there, and I had to react like backwards. Like we started with the fly in there, and then I'd have to watch it go away. And when they played it back, it was just like the worst backward acting you could ever imagine. And so the still photographer on the set had the ability to catch a fly with his hand, and they would take monofilament, like thin fishing line, and he would actually lasso these live flies, and I would try to grab this monofilament string and slide down. I captivated at least 3 of them.
To see their reactions, the guys that work there, it's just hilarious in its own self. Some of the stuff too that people bring in, it takes you back so far into the most positive aspects of your childhood. All the toys that used to be available that we still collect to this day. And I think that's one of my biggest takeaways is I'm in my mid-30s now and it's still okay to collect toys. If anything, we've mastered how to make it better. The Hot Toys, we get Slideshow. I mean, there's so many different brands out there now that make amazing toys. For example, Unleashed Star Wars. I actually feel really bad for kids because I think Hasbro has turned into a pile of shit. Their action figures are a joke, so that's why you gotta get a little bit more pricey. Spend the money and get the super duper detailed, awesome toys that are available. Same with comics. My good friend Uli, he got me this right here. Nowadays, you get certificates of authenticity. Unless it's the legit copy, you basically have toilet paper. Get it, TP, because Corona right now. Anyway, y'all, thank you so much for watching Spot of Nerd. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Send me your love, send me your comments. I'd love to know what you think. Have you watched the show? Do you give 2 shits? Stay tuned next time. We're gonna bring in my own collection. I think it'd be great to show you what I've got, and that way you can kind of judge it yourself. Is it cool? Is it not cool? Show me what you've got. I want to see some of your cool collectibles that you might have. With that said, I will let Kevin run us out. Take care, y'all. Later.
Have you seen your pop yet?
You haven't?
I have one right here. Hold on.
Come on, right?
Oh my God.
the Walt Flanagan Pop Vinyl figure.
It's unbelievable. This is comic book man. It says my name on it.
I've been lucky enough to be made in plastic as Silent Bob a few times, and then once as Kevin Smith, but I was never more thrilled than when I saw all 4 of you guys get popped. And just like that, man, we've run out of time. For Comic Book Men, I'm Kevin Smith.
Brian Johnson.
Walt Flanagan.
Rob Bruce. Mike Zapsik.
Ming Chen.
Pop goes the Funko, and now we're all toy boys. Good night.
Forget, unless you're shitting over 180 times, this whole TP fiasco is a joke.